Hello and welcome to another episode of the Highlight Reel. As always, my name is Nick Lynch.
And I'm Ben Heltzer.
And today we will be covering what happened in Week 6 of the NFL season, including an unexpected blowout, a blockbuster trade, our Week 7 power rankings, and our picks for Game of the Week. So to start off the day, what happened on Sunday in Dallas, the Cowboys get blown out by the Detroit Lions. And this was honestly shocking because, look, I knew the Cowboys weren't that good, but I didn't know they were that bad.
100%. And going into the week, I expected a Lions win, but I expected it to be like Game of the Week worthy. And we'll get into our Game of the Weeks at the end, but I expected it to be a close game. I know the Cowboys haven't looked great, but I didn't think they would look that bad. Obviously, the elephant in the room, Aiden Hutchinson, out for the year. Horrible. Yeah. The Defensive Player of the Year frontrunner. It just sucks for him. But even with that, the Lions were still able to come away with the win. I think it was like 40-something to 9.
47 to 9.
47 to 9. Yeah, it was a great win for the Lions, and they're going to be great moving forward.
Now on the other side with the Dallas Cowboys, I think they're in trouble here because they barely beat the Giants, they barely beat the Steelers, and now they get blown out by the Lions. So what is next for the Dallas Cowboys?
I don't know. If you have to be concerned if you're a Cowboys fan, because you have the Eagles, who, while they might not be looking that great, they're still better than you, and you got the Commanders, who are looking better than anyone's ever thought they would, and they'll probably finish ahead of you in the division. So we're looking at, if anything, a 6 or 7 seed at best, at worst, like not even a playoff berth. And I don't know when the last time. Oh, I know the Cowboys didn't make it the COVID year, but like they don't like. It's rare that they miss the playoffs, and we might be looking at that here this season.
Yeah, I agree. Because they just gave Dak Prescott, $60 million starting next year, and this is ridiculous with the Cowboys offense. I mean, you don't usually see this every year with Dallas. Usually their offense is outstanding, but this year it's just slow.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't look the same as it once was, but we're just gonna have to see what happens with them.
Yeah. So the next topic we're going to talk about, Davante Adams gets traded to the New York Jets. The big news of the week. And the Las Vegas Raiders only got a third-round pick that could turn into a second-round pick from the Jets. I don't think this was smart from the Raiders.
Yeah, no way. But this, I'm thinking about this. I'm still processing it because at the time of this recording, it happened literally this morning, a few hours ago. And, Rocco just had me on his show, Tri-State Sports, and we talked about it a little bit. But I think that I can't help but be nervous as a Bills fan about what the Jets are going to turn into with Rodgers and Adams back together. I know we don't play again until Week 17, so it'll be a while to see what that offense turns into. But on paper, that's a scary offense, even scarier than before.
Yeah. I mean, I'm happy that Rodgers and Adams are back together this time in New York, but on the other side for the Raiders, it is terrible, because you're going back into that rebuild phase when you got Davante Adams a few years ago, and it's just I don't know what's next for the Raiders, but it's going to be a long rebuild.
100%. I mean, Brock Bowers is a good start.
Yeah.
He's a good start. He's great, but you need a quarterback and you need a solid weapon out wide for to do anything notable, and they don't have that right now, and I don't know when they're going to get it.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on to our top 5 power rankings for Week 7. So number 5, we're going to go with the Houston Texans with that. I guess it wasn't a huge win, but it's a win for the Texans.
It's a win. A win is a win. You beat the Patriots, but it's still a win.
Yeah. Number 4, we have the Lions, which we talked about earlier, got that big blowout win against the Cowboys. The Baltimore Ravens at number 3, who got the win at home against Washington. The Minnesota Vikings, who are on the bye this week and who are still undefeated. And then the Kansas City Chiefs, who were also on the bye this week, still undefeated. So I think, the Chiefs, I think they're number 1, but I don't think they're going to be number 1 for all.
I'd like to agree with you, but I don't know. I looked at their schedule, and I don't know where that first loss would come from. But overall, top 3 stay the same. 4 and 5 switch from last week just because that impressive win by the Lions. Hopefully we get some more changes next week, but as of right now, this is what it is.
Yeah. So now we're going to move on to our Game of the Week. So Ben, what is your pick for Game of the Week?
My pick is we touched on it a little bit ago. It's that Ravens-Commanders game. I expected it to be a close game with how good the Commanders were looking, and it was pretty close. It was a 7-point game. The Ravens come away with the win at home, and there weren't that many great games this week. It was a bit boring, but I think this one stood out to me.
Yeah, but the one which stood out to me for at least the first 3 quarters was the Buccaneers and the Saints. It was close, very close. Spencer Rattler getting his first start in the NFL for the New Orleans Saints, and they kept it close, for the first 3 quarters, and then in that fourth quarter, Tampa Bay started to pull away from them.
Yeah, 100%. Huge win for Tampa. I think Baker had 3 picks, right? I'm pretty sure he had 3 picks.
Yeah, it was 2 or 3.
But he's been playing well. He's been able to put points on the board, and at the end of the day, that's all you need. But it was extremely fun to watch, at least for the first 3 quarters, and then when the Bucs started to just pour it on, it got a little bit predictable and boring. But I think overall, those first 3 quarters outweigh the fourth, and it was entertaining.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, when I was watching the game on my TV, it was 31-27 Tampa Bay. I look away for a second, come back, and it's 51-27.
Yeah, I don't know how they did it, but the Saints just collapsed.
Yeah. Well, that's it for us on the NFL, but up next is Smitty and Jake to talk about college football.
Hello and welcome back to college football on the highlight reel. What a weekend of games we just had. A lot of top-ranked teams going at it in super close ones. Let's get right to them because we got quite a few to talk about.
Starting off first with an early afternoon game, South Carolina played Alabama at home and lost in a very close one. Jake, what are your thoughts on this game?
Honestly, I thought South Carolina could have took this one. A lot of people were like, oh, we should be worried for South Carolina because they just lost to Vanderbilt. But honestly, didn't look much different in this game. South Carolina's defense had them in a chokehold for a big portion of the game. So let's just talk about it a little bit more. They were up 19-14 after a Raheem Sanders run, and that was for a good portion of the third and fourth quarter. Forced a safety earlier. Really, after Bama's 14-0 start, they were just playing amazing defense, and they really couldn't figure out South Carolina's pass rush at all.
Yeah, and then in the fourth, Bama did score twice, going up 27-19 with 2 minutes left. South Carolina scored with Nick Harburg.
Harbor?
Whatever. 31-yard passing touchdown. Not able to get the 2 points, though, to tie it up. So that was probably the worst part of the game since they couldn't get the 2 point to tie it up.
Got that onside kick, too, but just wasn't able to close the game out, wasn't able to tie it up, maybe, bring it to overtime. But I don't know. Bama's looking a little shaky. We'll see how they look the rest of the season.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes.
But moving on.
Next game we will talk about quickly is the Red River rivalry game, which was nothing like last year. Texas blew out Oklahoma 34-30 or 34-3.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers' first game back, he looked pretty good, about 200 passing yards. Slow start for Texas, 3-0 at the end of the first, but second quarter they really just poured it down on them. 3 touchdowns, 21-3 going into halftime, and they were just looking dominant for the whole game.
Yeah, I agree. Nothing much changed in the second half. 2 field goals, and Quinn Ewers dove into the end zone in the fourth, leading Texas to a 34-3 win in the Red River rivalry game.
Yeah, I think justifying their number 1 ranking. And we'll see. They have a big matchup this weekend against Georgia, so that'll definitely be cool to see. But another really good afternoon game this Saturday was Penn State versus USC. Penn State took this one on the road, 33-30 in overtime. Let's talk about this one.
It wasn't a great start for Penn State. They were down 20-6 at halftime. Just not a great start for Penn State for how they've been doing this year. But in the second half, Drew Aller was really able to keep them in the game.
Big performance from Aller.
Great performance by Drew. He stepped up big in the second half. So
391 passing yards from Aller, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, but don't be fooled by that. 2 of them really weren't his fault, and he was a big reason that Penn State did come out with this win. Aller threw a second touchdown pass at the end of the fourth, led them to overtime. And then Penn State came up with a huge defensive stop. got that field goal in overtime, came out with the win on the road. So big win for them.
Yeah, like you said, big win for them. They stay undefeated in a big game for Aller, like we just said. Let's talk about the next game.
Yeah. Wrapping it up now. 2 evening games, 2 big ones. First, number 2 Ohio State versus number 3 Oregon, and this was just a great game. It was the main one everyone was looking forward to.
Yep, like you said, main game of the Saturday night. Close start to finish. Just a very big back and forth game. Big performance from the true freshman Jeremiah Smith. 9 receptions, 100 yards, and a TD. Although he did have a costly penalty at the end, which I think cost them the game.
Could have cost them the game. I hate to always blame it on one play, but
it did cost them the game because it put them back 15 yards out of field goal range, and it was just a bad play by Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, not a good play, but he did have a great game. For Oregon, though, great games for 2 standout receivers. Evan Stewart had almost 150 receiving yards and a touchdown. Tez Johnson, pretty good game. 7 receptions, 75 yards and a touchdown. So, good game for their standout receivers, especially because one of them did get ejected earlier.
Yep. And then moving all the way down to the last play of the game, Will Howard. What an awful mistake he did there. Why would sliding it with 6 seconds left?
If he just timed it 2 seconds earlier, but
I mean or just throw the ball away because he didn't have anybody open. Or try to go for
trying to get extra yardage.
Try to go for the Hail Mary and maybe try to go out of bounds, but not good thinking by Will Howard.
Yeah, silly mistake, but that Jeremiah Smith PI pushed Ohio State back, so really just not ideal for them. Oregon comes out with the win. They take the number 2 spot. And then the last game, we're just wrapping it up. LSU versus Ole Miss. LSU takes it at home. Solid game from Nussmeier, over 300 passing yards, and threw that 1 touchdown to Aaron Anderson with just seconds left, sending it into overtime. And then when they got into overtime, we saw that huge throw to Kyron Lacey, taking it. What are your thoughts on this one?
Well, we got to wrap it up here. LSU comes out in overtime, 29-26. Just a good game for LSU. But that's going to do it for this week on college football on the highlight reel. Stay tuned to Andrew talking about soccer.
Hello, I am Andrew Mirzaaghasi, and I will talk about soccer once again. So, sadly, there was no Premier League or Champions League this week. However, I will be talking about national teams this time. So, let's go on to the United States national soccer team, in which they won against Panama 2-0. Now, we have a new coach, Mauricio Pochettino, who has worked in Chelsea, Tottenham, and PSG. He has so far done a good job on directing the players on what to do, what new strategies they should do, and it showed when they were versing Panama. Sadly, I can't really give it all to him because their next game against Mexico, which is pretty big because we have the United States versus Mexico rivalry in soccer, in which it is in the CONCACAF Gold Cup, in which mostly these 2 countries end up going to the finals. Then the United States eventually loses to Mexico, and we get laughed at because of that. This game is no exception, as we lost to Mexico 2-0, and I'm kind of ashamed of that. However, Mauricio has stated that beating Panama is the first step into more to come in the World Cup 2026. So, going back to the World Cup qualifiers in South America, they are back, and the first game we will be talking about is Argentina versus Bolivia, in which Bolivia got instantly destroyed with 6-0. Argentina won this game easily. Messi, Alvarez, and others, they were able to destroy Bolivia easily. I could give it that. And they still show that even after the World Cup and Copa America, they still go strong. And I will have to say about Bolivia is that apparently they defeated Colombia 1-0, which I have no words on how that happened, but anything could happen in the game of soccer. Another match I would like to cover in the World Cup qualifiers is Ecuador versus Uruguay, since Ecuador did a very good job in the Copa America. Like I said in one of the other episodes, they were giving Argentina a run for their money. So seeing Ecuador versus Uruguay, it seemed kind of interesting matchup to see, say for the least. However, nothing really happened as it was a scoreless game. However, Uruguay was on the attack most of the part because Ecuador was playing defensive the entire time. So I'm kind of surprised about that. But I will have to give props to the Ecuadorian goalie because he was able to defend like it was no tomorrow. I think a total of 7 shots on goal, which is kind of impressive, and they were all blocked. So I'll give it to him. It is a pretty tough position to do for a goalie to block all those shots consistently. So we have the standings for our World Cup qualifiers, and we start with number 1, Argentina, with number 2, Colombia, 3rd is Uruguay, 4 is Brazil, and 5 is Ecuador. Now, it's no shock that Argentina, Colombia, and Uruguay are top 3 because, like I said in other episodes, they have pretty good teams, but seeing Ecuador being part of the top 5 is really astonishing because they usually don't do that good. And of course, Brazil being number 4, it's Brazil. They know soccer a lot, so I'm not going to really talk about that. But Ecuador being a significant improvement, I would like to congratulate them for holding a number 5 spot, but hopefully it will keep up that in the later games. That's it for soccer, but don't go anywhere because Rocco and Matt will be talking about the NBA.
Hello and welcome back to the NBA segment on the highlight reel. We're another week closer to the start of the NBA season. Rocco, I just want to get your thoughts on the first 2 games of the season.
Listen, the preseason's been really interesting to watch. I mean, the New York Knicks took down the Minnesota Timberwolves in what was a thrilling match. Julius Randle didn't play, but listen, Brunson, Karl Anthony Towns, we really did our thing. And look, at least one New York team, or a few, are actually giving me some fun, unlike the New York Jets. But that's a topic for another episode. And now, the Knicks, we have championship aspirations. We have the team. We have the players. We have the coach. We got it all. It's time to just go get it. And listen, with the season just over a week away, I'm really excited for our matchup against the Celtics.
Next up, we got the Timberwolves and the Lakers. What are your thoughts on that?
Timberwolves, Lakers just goes as any other preseason game. I don't really think there's anything too much to take away aside from the bench players look good. And that's really what's important because we saw the Pacers had the bench to go far in the playoffs. I think they were a little fraudulent, but totally not biased. But you get the idea. And a lot more to come in the coming weeks, especially once we talk about regular season ball, which I can't wait for.
I'm so excited. That's it for NBA this week, but next up is Myles and Luke on MLB.
Welcome to the highlight reel. Today we'll be talking about the ALCS and the NLCS.
So we'll start off with the Yankees Guardians in the ALCS. Game 1, the Yankees took it 5-4. Great game. Yankee Stadium. They looked rough early. I mean, they got on in the first inning, but then Judge struggling again. Gets out. Wells gets out. Stanton gets out, and the Guardians just find ways to get through it in the first. Later on in the game, they got some more base runners again, and the Guardians changed pitchers. And then it was just wild pitch after wild pitch. And that's how the Yankees really took their lead right away. It was on wild pitches and walks. It wasn't hits. It was just getting on base and then running around when they would throw the ball to the backstop every time.
Yeah, I feel like the Guardians kind of gave the Yankees that game. I mean, Joey Cantello, he's the pitcher that threw 20 pitches and a fifth of them were wild pitches. How do you do that in a playoff game? How does Stephen Vogt trust this man to pitch in a playoff game is beyond me. But overall, a really good pitching performance from the Yankees. Carlos Rodon went 6, had 9 strikeouts. Luke Weaver, obviously, at the start of the postseason, that was my main question for the Yankees. Do they have a closer? Can they find a guy who can come in the 9th, maybe even in the 8th, and get a save? And that's exactly what Weaver has done both games this series. So really good on him and a good win for the Yankees.
Yeah, Weaver, 5-out save again. I mean, he was a starter coming up. We know he could get innings. And they just put him in whenever they feel, okay, now it's time to go. We need to just finish the game. They just go to him. It doesn't really matter when it is. It could be 5 outs, 6 outs, start the 9th inning. He come in the middle of the 9th inning. He does it all.
Yeah, he's been really effective.
Yeah. And so far in the postseason, he's been great. And that's how the Yankees take Game 1. So moving on to Game 2. It's another Yankee win to go up 2-0 in the series. They win this one 6-3. And it was finally, like, Judge hit a homer, it feels like he could get going again.
Yeah, even Joel Embiid has good playoff games. So Judge, just by nature, is going to hit a homer. But Garrett Cole, obviously, didn't have the best of starts. 4 innings, gave up 4. But a really great job again by the Yankee bullpen. And obviously, I sound like a broken record. Luke Weaver comes in again and gets another save. His changeup has just been incredible. All series, all playoffs, just falls off the table. The Guardians had multiple times in this game where it was bases loaded. David Fry came up. He went first pitch swing. I still don't know why. And he popped out. And then it was just game over after that. Another unfortunate good win for the Yankees, and their bullpen has really carried them.
Yeah, so the Yankees, another great game, and they just got out of, like, tough situations. Like you were saying, the bases loaded, and they just managed to get out of it, and then gave up a couple of runs, but then would just get them back and took the lead by more. 9th inning, Ramirez hit a home run off of Weaver, but the game is pretty much over at that point, so it didn't matter that much. And really, Gleyber Torres had a great game with 3 hits. I feel like he's had a great postseason altogether.
Yeah, he's really been raking from the leadoff spot. That's been a nice surprise for you guys. So moving on to the NL, Dodgers versus Mets. The Dodgers won that game 9-0. Jack Flaherty went 7 innings and had an overall great start. The game wasn't competitive after like the 4th. It was 6-0 at one point. But obviously a good game for the Dodgers all around. Kike Hernandez, former Red Sox. Love that guy. He had 2 hits. Mookie, another former Red Sox who should be on the Red Sox right now, had 3 ribby. But Mets offense looked bad. But judging by the adversity that they faced all season, it didn't really seem like the game affected them at all.
No, I mean, the Mets, they just didn't look good game 1. The Dodgers came out and just beat them in every aspect of the game, just destroyed them, 9-0 win. Not much else about it, just completely destroyed the Mets.
Yeah, so in game 2, the script was really flipped. Mets won it 7-3. Mark Vientos hit a grand slam off of Landon Knack. A really great job by the Mets to get on the Dodger pitching early. Ryan Brazier started the game. They went with an opener strategy, and the opener can really kill you sometimes, like we saw with the Tigers. But the Mets just kept hitting all night. Obviously, Vientos, who we touched on, and Francisco Lindor hit a homer.
Yeah, and Starling Marte also had a really good game. And he's usually good whenever he's healthy, which isn't that often, but whenever he's healthy, he is really good. And also Sean Manaea, who's been great for, like, most of the year. It's been one of his best years as a pitcher. And he looked great again in 5 innings, hit 7 strikeouts. And then the Mets bullpen came in and shut it down and ended the game.
Yeah, he kind of lost it, Manaea, when he went to San Francisco. Obviously, as a lefty, it's tough, finding a location on your changeup. But overall, in both of these games, actually, it's just kind of been domination by both teams.
Yeah, and they'll play Game 3 tonight, so we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, so that's all we have this week on the Highlight Reel. We'll see you next week.